this exercise, we're going to solve a set of questions. So I have borrowed these equations from a website. So as you can see, suppose we have a matrix in which all rows have the same number of columns. So if I have row 1 has 3 columns, this means that row 2 also has 3 columns, and so on. Write a function called sum rows that takes as a parameter a 2D list and prints the sum of each row 1 per line. So as usual, you pause the video, you try to solve it, and then you come back and you check your answer to my answer. Okay, let's see what you're going to do. Okay, welcome back. So what do you do at the beginning? You think about, you try as if forget about programming, and now you use your critical thinking. Let's say we have a matrix. Okay, let's say it's 1, 2, 3, 5, 4, 1, 3, 2, 1, 1, 7, minus 1, 4, something like this. And if I want to represent this and a list of lists, as you can see, I will have in the first row, I will have 1, 2, and 3, and in the second row, I will have 5, 4, and 1, and in the third row, I will have, so you got the idea. So what is now sum of rows? So you ask yourself a simple question. What does it mean sum of rows? It means that I want the sum of the first one here. And when I got the sum, 1 plus 2, 3 plus 3 is going to be 6. So I want to print 6. And then after that, when I'm done with this, I want to go to the second row. And I want to find the sum of this, which is 10. And I want to print 10. And then I want to find the sum of this. And then I want to find the sum of this. Then you ask yourself a simple question. A sum of this, what does it mean? The first element is going to be 0, 0 at row 0 and column 0. The second element is going to be at row 0, still the same row, but column 1. This one is at row 0, but column 2. So what does this mean? It means that, as you can see, for each printing 6 here, the row is still fixed. I'm not changing it, but the column is changing. It was 0, 1, 2. The same idea here. When the first one is row 1, column 0, and this one is still row 1 but column 2, and this one is row 1 but column 3. The same idea here. Then as you can see, this one is going to be fixed, but this one is going to be changed. So you ask yourself now, as you can see, we will have 2 loops. One loop is going to move the row, and the other one is going to be scanning or moving or traversing the column. So what do I do now? I need to know which row is going to, which loop is going to be outside and which loop is going to be inside. So I have outside loop or outer loop, and I have inner loop. The idea is very easy. The one that is changing frequently, as you can see here, 0, 1, 2, this is going to be the inner loop. And this one is not going to change unless I'm done with this, and then I will go to this. And then when I'm done with this, I will go to this. And this one is going to be the outer. So as you can see here, 0, 0, 0, it means that it's not changing. It means it's the outer loop. It's changing when I'm done with the inner loop, and that's what does it mean. The inner loop is going to be 0, 1, 2, depending on the length of each column. Okay, so that's how I think about it. I draw a matrix, I put some numbers, and I started checking which of these is changing and which of these is constant. So as you can see now, sum of rows, what do I need to do? Let's think about it. Forget about programming now, I'm thinking about mathematics. So I need to create 2 loops. I'm going to start summing these, this one, this one, this one. So initially the sum should be what? 0. And I should add 1 to sum, and then 2 to the sum, and then 3 to the sum. When I got 6, what do I need to do after that? I need to jump to this one here. It means that I will go to the outside loop and then go inside here, and the column is going to be 0. Do I add it to sum directly? No, the sum is 6 now. So before adding to sum, so whenever I'm done, I need to do to the sum what? I needed to make it 0 again before I add these numbers. Because if it's 6 and I start adding the numbers, it's going to be 5 plus 6, 4. No, I don't want this. I want the sum of each row. Okay, guys, so I hope that this will have given you an idea what do I need to do. And let's go now to the programming part. So as you can see, this is question number 6, what is called sum rows. So usually it's a good habit when you start programming, guys. I want you to write the doc string. Okay, that's a good habit. So define, and we said it's gonna called sum of rows. And this is a very, very important step. Whenever you read here that takes as a parameter a 2D list, in the question they are telling you that this function is going to take a 2D list. So don't say I want to do something else. It's going to take 2 arguments instead of 1 argument. It's not going to take any arguments. No, the function says that it should take 1 argument as a parameter, 1 parameter, which is a 2D list. That's it. You don't try to I'm smart, I'm going to pass 2 parameters. I'm smart, I'm going to pass 3 parameters. No, you follow the instructions. This sum rows is going to be used by so many people. And in the documentation, it says it's going to take 1 parameter. So don't play it smart and say, I'm going to pass 3 parameter or 1 parameter or 3 parameter or 7 parameter or 8. It depends on the question here. Okay, guys, so this is important. In the exam, if I say that I have a function that is going to accept 2 parameters, you put only 2 parameters. Accept 1 parameter is going to put one parameter. It does not accept anything, you don't put anything. This is really important. Really very important. I have seen so many things in the previous midterm. The students are just like putting parameter as if there is no question. They are like inventing things. Don't do this because you're going to lose the grades. Okay, so it's going to take only one parameter. So let's go back here. And I'm going to call this parameter, for example, 2_d_list. So ask yourself a simple question. This 2D list is going to be sent to you. So now when it comes to you, you don't care about this 2D, from where they're going to give it, how they're going to give it. You don't care. All what you care is that give me 2D list, guys, and I will do the rest. And as I have said, it's a great idea to do what? To do some, as I have told you, to do some docstring. So I have written the docstring, and this is actually the docstring. It's going to take a list, okay, and it's going to return none because it's going to print. So as you can see, and the prints, it means it's going to return none. So whenever there is a print and no return, it means it's going to return none. And then after that, it takes a 2D list and it prints the sum of each row one per line. That's the docstring, if you remember. That's what we have talked about in the lecture, and it's a good habit to write it. If I ask you to do so, you have to do so. If I don't, it's a good habit to do it. Now what do we need? We need, as we have said, two loops, one outer loop and one inner loop. So I'm going to say for a row in range, and what do we want to range? The length of the whole list, and the length of the whole 2D list is the length of, what is the name of the list? It's 2_d_list. It's the 2D list. So I want the length of this 2D list. So this is the first loop. So it's gonna, if I have 3 rows, it's gonna go 3. If I have 4 rows, it's gonna go 4. If I have 10 rows, it's gonna go, it does not depend on the number of columns, this depends on the number of rows. Okay, the second one is 4, and as I have said, column in range, and now the length of each row. So we're gonna write length of each row, and when it comes to each row, it means that 2_d_list. And remember, now I'm in row. So this one here, I'm gonna put row. And what does this mean? What does this mean? Let me tell you what does this mean. In a very simple words. Where is my pen? Where is my pen? It should be somewhere here. So what does this mean? Look, what does this mean? It means that, so I don't want you to miss something. If I have, let's say, A, B, C, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 3, let's say 2, even though this is not the case. But the idea, we said it's always is going to be like, if I have 3 here, here I will have 3, and here I will have 3, but here I will not have 4. But let's say we have something like this. So what I'm saying here is I have row number 1. So this is the row in I. So this is the first row. And then I need to loop to this one and this one and this one. So how many times I need to loop? It depends on the length of what? Of this row. How to get the length of this row? Remember, row 0, if I say 2D list 0, it means that's the first row. If I say 2D list and I put here 1, it means the length of it means this row. If I put length of this row, it's going to give me 3. If I say, for example, 2D lists, and I put here, for example, this is row 0, this is row 1, and this is row 2. If I put 2 here, it means I mean this row. If I put length here, it means give me the length of this row, which is 2, which is going to give me here 4. While this one is going to give me 3. So it means that move 4 times. Okay, just here, because we're sure that it's going to be, the number of columns is going to be the same, so we can put the number of columns, but the idea is this is a better way to do this. Okay, that's why I put this one is going to loop depending on the number of rows, and this one is going to loop depending on the number of columns of each row. After that, what do I need to do? I need to do some sum. So I need to initiate the sum. And if you remember, we talked about the identity element in the sum, and so we said that the sum is going to be equal to 0, while if we're doing multiplication, the identity element is 1, and we initialize it to 1. If you remember this, by all the idea, I need to initialize now the sum. You may be tempted to initialize the sum here, and you would say, for example, row underscore sum, and you put it equal to 0, for example, and you initialize it to here. But if you remember, we have said that every time you add a row, when you go back, you want to add the second row, you need to make the sum equal to 0. So if you put it here, it's going to be makes equal to 0 only one time, but you don't want this. You want this sum. When I'm done with summing each row, you want this sum to be back to be 0. And in order to do this, you put it here. What does this mean? It means that find me the sum, we'll see in a minute. Find me the sum of the first row, print it for me, and then go back. When you go back to the second row, please make the sum again 0 and find me the sum of the second row alone, not the second with the first. And when you're done, make the row equal 0 and so on. And that's what we're going to do. Okay, guys, is this clear? And nobody is answering. I don't know why. It seems that I'm alone here. So what do I do now? As you can see, the row underscore sum plus equal. And what do I need to now to add to it? I need to add to it the element in the 2D list and the element in the 2D list, okay, it's going to be that element with index row, and with column it's called COL. Okay, so add to it the elements that I'm like walking through, the element number 00, the element number 11, the element number 12, the element, it depends on the rows and the columns. Okay, when I'm done summing, what do I do in this loop? I need to print this sum. So this print is when I'm done with summing the rows. I need the first row actually is going to be printed, and then the second row is going to be printed, and then the third row is going to be printed. So as you can see now, Tim and here. And let's try this. Let's try it. Let's see what's going to happen. Let me try it. So as you can see, it's going to be printed, and then go back, and then let's try it. Okay, it's called sum rows. Let's take an example. So let's take this example. Let me write here. Where is code? And let me write here. So as you can see, I have 1, 2, 3. So I have 1, 2, 3, and what do I have also? 3, 4, 5. So what is the sum of the first row? 1 plus 2, 3 plus 3 is going to be 6, and this one 3 plus 4 is 7 plus 5 is 12. So I should get 6 and 12. Let's see whether this is going to be correct. If not correct, we're going to try to fix it. But as you can see, it gave me for the first row is going to be 12, for the second row 6 and 12. Let's change something here, and let me put here, for example, 8. So it should be 14, and let me put here another 8. So the second one should be 20. And let's see whether it's going to give me 14 and 20. And as you can see, it gave me 14 and 20. Let me put here -1, for example. Okay, so it should be 12, and so 12 and 20, and this is correct. Okay, so the first question, as you can see, is straightforward and very easy to be solved. That's question number 6. What about question number 7? Write a function called sum column that takes as a parameter 2D list and print the sum of each column one per line. And now instead of the rows, I want the columns. And what does it mean, the columns? If I look at this list that I have it here, so let me look at this list here that I have -1, I have 2, I have 3, I have 8, and I have 3, I have 4, I have 5, and I have 8. So instead of I want the sum of the column, now what do I want? I want the sum of the rows. It means that instead of rows, I want the column. It means that I want the sum of these, and you give me the answer here. -1 plus 3 is going to be 2. And then the sum of these is going to give me 6. And then the sum of these is going to give me 8. And the sum of these is going to give me 16. Okay, so I want to go through here. Again, what do? I check this one here. This one here is 0, 0. And this one here, do I want to move like this, or I want to move like this? No, I want to move like this. So as you can see, 0, 0, and this one is going to be 0, 1. So as you can see, the row now is fixed, while the column is the one that is moving. No, wait. This one is 1, 0. It's the column which is fixed, and the row is moving. So look, who's the inner loop and who's the outer loop? If you answer this question, you're done. Who's now is fixed? The one who's fixed is going to be the outer loop. And the one who's moving in each step is going to be the inner loop. Yes, you said it. The one that is moving, if I have -1, 3, let's say I have another element here, 5, what's going to happen? You're going to move. This one is going to be 0, 0. This one is going to be 1, 0. I'm still at column 0, but instead of row 0, I'm not at row 1. And this one actually is still at column 0, but at row 2. Okay, so what's happening here? The column is going to be fixed, but the row is going to be changed. Does this mean that the column is going to be what? It's going to be the outer loop. And this one here is going to be the inner loop. You got it, guys? Don't tell me that you didn't get it. If you didn't get it for any reason, and hopefully that you got, review this. Pause, go back and review it. But that's how. Look, I didn't even touch my keyboard in order to write a code. I think about it. I see which one is changing. How can I accommodate this? And then I start writing my code. Okay, guys, so let's write the code of this one very quickly. And hopefully you will got it. So here I'm not going to write this docstring. I'm going to define directly my function. And I'm going to say define. We said it's called the sum columns, I guess. And sum columns, okay, good. And what we're going to do when it comes to sum columns, we're going to, it's the same thing, just do the, if you remember, I called it lists. I still remember, 2D list. And what do we need to do? We need to find the column, okay? And how to find the column? Column 0, column 1, column 2, and so on. So we said that the columns are, it's going to be the same. They will have the same number. If each row is going to have the same number of columns. So that's why I'm going to find how many columns do I have in this 2D list. And how many columns? It's column, if you remember. I'm going to call it the column, for example, equal. Let me find the length of the first row. And the length of the first row is the same as the length of the columns, okay? Well, what does this mean? Give us an example before you continue, because actually you lost us in the second, in the last second. Okay, I have, for example, let's say I have 1, 7, 3, 2, and I have 8, 3, 1, -1. I have 0, 1, 0, 1, let's say. Okay, this is row 1. What is the length of row 1? It means how many columns do I have? I have 1, 2, 3, 4. So if you want to find the number of columns that you have, all what you need to do is to say the length of row, let's say 0. But suppose I'm going to call this matrix, the whole thing. I'm calling it 2D list. So all what you need to do is to put 2D list and you put 0. When you put 2D list 0, it means you want this one here. We know this. 2D list 0, it means you want it. The length of 2D list, it means the length of this one, which is 4. Okay, and that's how many times you're going to loop in the outer loop. Okay, guys, you got it? Okay, so let's go back now. I hope that I didn't lose you. So as you can see, the column is going to be the length of the 2D list, and the length of the whole 2D list is going to give me the number of rows. No, I want actually the number of columns. So since the number of columns are the same for all rows, it's enough to get it for the first row because it's going to be the same for the rest. Okay, so I'm going to say here 0, for example, and here I will get the number of columns that I have. Okay, that's what does it mean. And now what I'm going to do, remember, the outer loop is the column. So I'm going to say for COL in what? In the range of what? Of the number of columns that do I have. How many column do I have? I got the number. Some of you is going to ask me, can I put this here? Yes, but I wanted to make it like this in order to make it more clear to you. Okay, so I can put it. This is the outer loop is the number of columns. The inner loop is the row. For row in, where for row in range of the whole list, which is the length of 2_d_ list. Okay, guys. So as you can see here we have the row and then we have the column. Here totally is opposite. We'll have the column because the thing that is changing frequently is the row, and the one when I'm done changing all the rows, I will go to the next column, and that's why the column is going to be the outer loop. And what do I do now? All what I need to do, again, I want the sum of the columns. So sum underscore column plus equal to the list, again, row, and what else, and a column. Okay, as you can see, sum 2D list is not defined. So am I going to define it outside or inside this loop? You guessed it, inside this loop, because I want actually to be 0 after each iteration. I don't want this to be 0 one time. No, when I'm done with each column and I want to add the second column, it should be a 0. Okay, guys? And what do I do outside this loop, but inside the first loop? I need to print the sum of the column. That's what I need to print, sum of the column. Let's run it and see whether there is any issue. And let's try now to test it. Let's try to test it. So let's look at this here. Look at it. So what's going to be the sum of the first column is going to be 4, the second column is going to be 6, and the third column is going to be 8. So if I got this, it means that my work is okay. If no, I need to check it. So let's see. I got an error. What does it say? Print sum of column, sum plus list. It says that I print, what is the most sum of the column? It seems that, let me check, what is this? Oh, index error. So let's see why we have index error. So as you can see here, instead of putting COL, I want for row, and the column, I want this column here, this index, not the column for the whole one. So I want to put here the column, and this column is going to be COL. So for column in range of this one, and here for each column. So it's like IJ, row, column, okay? So let's see whether it's going to give me now an error or not. So I run it again, and let's run it again. If you remember, we said it's going to give us sum of this one and this one, which is 4, sum of this one and this one, which is 8, and so on. So as you can see, it's true. Let me change this one here and to put -4, for example. So I should get 0 in the next, let's see. So as you can see, 4, 0, and 8. Okay, I hope that this is somehow give you an intuition how we do this.